Dad said I've learned my lesson, part 1. Dad said I've learned my lesson. I promised myself I won't laugh at Dad's funeral. Sitting in front of my mirror, I apply very light makeup. Dad said it was devil's paint. He liked me to look natural. Once I'm satisfied with my chalky look, my cheeks a deep, pallid white resembling a corpse, I move on to my hair. Dad didn't like hair dye. He said it was unnatural, so I spent all night recoloring my hair back to my natural brunette shade. I force a grin, the one Dad liked. I run my hands down my dress as it hangs off me. Dad said showing skin was a sin. Dad said a woman occupies a room to be seen, not heard. Dad said a woman must walk behind her husband, never in front. Dad said a woman must marry a man and have beautiful Christian babies. Dad said women loving women was a cardinal sin, that women should be hung for indecent thoughts. I've had so many indecent thoughts, too many to count. Find out what happens next in part 2. When I was 14, I was sent to a special school where my indecent thoughts were hollowed out of me. Dad said it was necessary, that I was sick. A school with bars on the windows, a school with locked doors, a school with chairs with Velcro straps, mandatory movie screenings. Dad said my favorite would be the one where the man and woman live happily ever after and have a beautiful Christian child. But the school wouldn't let me leave. They offered colorful candy that made me stop thinking for days on end. I lost hours staring at the ceiling and trying to find my thoughts, trying to find my tongue. I demanded to speak to my dad. I was 13. Dad would save me, right? Dad would take me home. Just a little longer, he kept saying every time he visited. I believed him. But then I turned 14, and then 15. I missed holidays and vacations. Find out what happens next in part 3. He ignored the blood on my bed sheets from my attempts to kill myself, the restraints pinning my torso and arms. Dad came to see me on my 16th birthday, wiped away my tears, and said, "It's okay, you'll learn how to find a man." Dad said the restraints were needed, that my body wasn't mine, it was God's. Dad ignored my screams for mercy, for forgiveness, when electricity rattled my bones and hemorrhaged my nose, when I was told to bite down on plastic so they could drill the indecency from me. Dad said God didn't forgive me. Dad said he was ashamed of me, ashamed of my indecent thoughts, ashamed of my refusal to accept responsibility for my own actions. I was a bad kid, Daddy said, a devil child who deserved to be punished. Find out what happens next in part 4. When I was 18, I was released. I walked into my father's arms and hugged him. I remember his satisfied grin, his sharp breath in my ear. "Have you learned your lesson, Rebecca?" "Becca, are you still there?" My girlfriend's voice crackles through my phone, which I've forgotten is still pressed to my ear. I place it on my dressing table and pick up a tube of eyeliner, screwing off the lid with trembling fingers. "Are you all right?" Anna's voice barely grazes my ears as I apply thick, extravagant strokes to my eyes, revel in that red-hot hit of dopamine, and then scrub it away. Dad said my face must always be white, always perfect, like a porcelain doll. Find out what happens next in part 5. I murmur, tying my hair into a dull ponytail. I will miss the pink streaks in my hair, but it's just for one day. Dad said my hair must never spill over my shoulders, always be in a strict, tight ponytail for my husband to tug when punishing me for my disobedience. I shake away his words. "I'm good," I say quickly. "I'm just getting ready." Anna's sigh explodes through the speaker. "Becca, I'm in the car outside. If anything happens, I'll be waiting." I smiled. "I love you," Dad said. "I love you" was only reserved for my husband. Anna paused before whispering, "I love you too." I end the call, check myself over in the mirror, and leave my room. Wylan, my sister, is waiting outside. She's pale, shaking. Sculpted in Dad's suit and tie, Wylan is a nervous wreck. Dad said Wylan was a man through and through, born a man, would always be a man. Wylan was sent to the special school to become a man. Wylan still had scars on her temples and the backs of her hands. Find out what happens next in part 6. Hollow eyes that pretend to be okay. Instead of speaking, I take her clammy hand with a smile. "You okay?" Wylan hesitates, her lip curving slightly. "Yeah." Entering the funeral hall, we meet our brother, Quinn. Dad told Quinn he was sick when he was 12, that euthanasia would be the best course of action. After all, Dad said some children weren't fit to be alive. Quinn was diagnosed with autism at 8 years old. At 10 years old, he was sent to be with the angels. Luckily, Quinn escaped. I pretend I can't sense him trembling when I take his hand, and the three of us stand over Dad's open coffin. It's just in the room. Family. For a moment, I am silent, staring down at Dad's peaceful face. My gaze lingers on the attempts to cover up the gashing wound in his chest, where I plunge the knife into his heart. Find out what happens next in part 7. Quinn breaks after a moment of awkwardness. He breaks into his hands, muffling his grin, trying to suppress his hysterical giggles. Wylan is next. She smirks. Doesn't laugh. I don't expect her to. And finally, I break apart. I drop to my knees and I can't stop myself anymore. I laugh until I am crying, until I am wrapped around my siblings and I am whole again. I lied. I did fucking laugh at Dad's funeral. Follow for more horror stories.